Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansu, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show. We cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we'll give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we have a hell of a show in store for you guys. Before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, this is going to be a topic that's going to get a lot of people talking. As you guys know, there's some people out there that say that this is the greatest era of basketball in terms of talent and skill. There are people out there that say, you know, this is the most talented era ever. You even have some contemporary players, contemporary stars, like Anthony Edwards, who recently said, you know, MJ was the only player with skill in his era. And when they saw Kobe, everybody was kind of freaking out. They were like, oh my goodness, but now everyone has skill. Those statements didn't go over well with a lot of NBA fans. And just recently we produced a show where DeMar DeRozan had a sit down on Paul George's podcast. DeMar DeRozan is a star of the NBA today, where he was basically refuting almost everything that Anthony Edwards said. And basically he said what it came down to, without saying it, was that he just has a lack of basketball knowledge, and therefore that's the reason he went out there and said that. And to be fair, Anthony Edwards did say himself that he doesn't know what he's talking about, but nevertheless, that didn't stop him from going out there and making the statements that he did. Now, I'm one of those people that feel like, in terms of athleticism, for example, because people like to say, well, athletes are better today, are faster, stronger, more athletic, and all of that. And I'm like, I don't really see what you're talking about, because we can go through the decades and look at athletes from every single decade. I'm not seeing guys that are jumping 75 feet off the ground or jumping 25 feet off the ground. I don't see that. Some people, I'm not seeing guys that are faster than we've ever seen before. Players have been fast pretty much for as long as I can remember, or at least for as long as the NBA has been around. But given how the NBA, in terms of how it's played, has changed over time, it gives some fans this false perception of things are better now, when they really don't understand that the rule changes are what essentially dictate what we're seeing. So what happened? Recently, Shaquille O'Neal went on Udonis Haslem's podcast, and they were talking about their Miami Heat days. They were talking about Rudy Gobert. They were talking about Kobe and all of that. But towards the tail end of their sit down, they got to a point where they were discussing different eras, and they were talking about the modern NBA. And if you know anything about Shaq is not going to pull his punches. He's going to call it down the line, and he's going to tell you what he sees. So they got to the point where he was asking him, you know, what do you think about the modern NBA? And Shaq, in typical Shaq fashion, absolutely started to address these dudes and just started going off and exposing this era. But before we even get into what Shaquille O'Neal had to say, today's video is brought to you by our sponsor, PrizePicks, which is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks makes it easy to get real money action on sports and players you love. Pick more or less on 2 or more players in any sport to win up to 100 times your entry fee. For example, here's a possible winning player projection lineup: Tyreek Hill for more than 90 receiving yards and Dak Prescott for more than 263 passing yards, Josh Allen for less than 240 passing yards, and CeeDee Lamb for more than 96 receiving yards. And if you're like me and you want to play safe, you will love the new features PrizePicks invented: Flex Plays. Flex Pays are the safest way to play PrizePicks. You can still make a profit or win some money back, even if a couple of your picks don't hit. On top of this, PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. And remember, whenever you support this sponsor, you're supporting this channel. Thank you. So what we want to do now is want to play exactly what Shaq had to say. It's not very long. It's only about a minute or so. And then want to come back and react to his commentary. Take a listen to what Shaq had to say here.
But what's the difference between now, the basketball players now, the teams now, the play style now compared to when you were coming through?
What I hate about watching this game now is everybody's running the same place. Do they even have shoot around now?
No, it's not really plays. It's position. It's positionless basketball. It's a lot of read and react. No, it's a lot of read and react.
That's dumb. Like, you know, we jump on Joel Embiid like, what you shooting 30-footers for?
Yeah.
Like, everybody's running the same play. Like that right there is the first thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of read and react.
Nobody wants to take advantage of their abilities. Not the talents. You have to take advantage of your ability. If I'm the biggest guy out there, I'm not shooting jumpers. Mike, I wanted to step out there all the time and put my L and make my look as pretty as yours, but no, you did, but that motherfucker didn't pay to see that. Get your ass down low and down. Like, second thing. And then the third thing, it's not as physical. And I don't really like to compare eras either, but, you know, I want this thing of ours protected. Like, just signed a deal for $6 billion. What you think the next deal gonna be? We can get 10. So now, I heard the other day that Luka may be the first $100 million man. I'm happy for Luka. He deserves that.
So you heard what Shaq had to say. What are my thoughts on what Shaq said? Look, I think he brought up some good points. Shaq isn't the only one that has been talking about this. There have been some players. Recently, we did a show covering some comments that Kenny Smith made where he was essentially breaking it down to the point where he was basically saying that he's not sure a lot of NBA players playing today could even make NBA teams back when he was playing. And he basically explained how the rules dictate how players play. And this is not new news, right? We also did a show a number of months ago when Kevin Garnett interviewed Adam Silver, where Adam Silver was saying that they needed to soften up the rules because had they not done that, players like Stephen Curry and others would not have been able to display their offensive talent. He literally said that. So what's the inverse of that? He's saying that if they did not adjust the rules, the Stephen Currys of the world would not be who we think they are. That's essentially what Adam Silver said. That's the commissioner of the NBA admitting that the rule changes are benefiting players and allowing them to score more. Not that they have more of their ability to score is greater, is that the rule changes are allowing them to do so. Kenny Smith pointed this out as well. He spoke about how hand checking changes up the entire dynamic of how a player performs on the court. He said because when you're allowed to touch a player and hand check them, they don't have to bring the ball up the court, backing it up. Whereas now, since you can't touch players, they can walk up to you freely. They can see the court better. They can get into their moves easier. He was breaking this down to a fundamental level. And what these guys are saying is the rules. Now, Shaq talked about the softness and all of that. Yeah, yes, well, Shaq makes a good point. This is the cupcake era, right? And anybody disputing that fact is completely clueless. There are only two people I've heard that are NBA players say that this era is somehow physical or just as physical as it's always been. There are two people. One of them has been Gilbert Arenas. The other one has been JJ Redick. Every other player has said it's not. Going down the list from Dominique Wilkins, Kobe Bryant. Even Kobe Bryant had a video when he was talking to Floyd Mayweather where he was like, you can't touch these MFers no more. You can't touch them. So all these other guys are saying it's more physical, but the only two people are JJ and Gilbert. So I don't know what to say about those two guys, right? When it comes to this particular issue. To me, look, Shaq is 100% correct, right? He's 100% correct. I never bought into this faster, bigger, strong. Because I feel like it's a platitude that people throw out there, but they don't really explain. Because people say they're faster, stronger, and they're going to leave comments. There are going to be some people like this. But what they cannot do is substantiate their claim. They cannot actually give you examples. They're faster. Okay, can you give us some times of players today that have ran up and down the court faster than times that other players in previous decades? They cannot produce that information. Stronger. How we equating this? As a matter of fact, it's quite literally idiotic to say that players today are stronger. It's actually idiotic. How do you know this? You can understand this from actually visually observing the game. You're like, but how do you figure that out? If the traditional big men like the Shaq, the threes and the fours who play in the paint, do you understand the strength that you need to have to be able to body up against bigger guys? What level of physicality do you need when you have your bigs now stepping out to shoot threes? You need it to be stronger. Go back and watch point guards from the 2000s. If you look at them, they had bigger bills, especially on their shoulders. Why did they have bigger bills? Why did they work on their upper body to have more muscularity? Why did players like Michael Jordan and all of them work on their bodies? Why did Kobe at a certain point work on his body to get more physical? What was the reason? What do you think the reason that was for? You think it was for aesthetic reasons? The reasons they did this, and one of the players explained this, I think it was Steve Francis, he said the reason why we're building more upper body mass is because whenever you go into the paint, you need to be able to take those hits. So when you have more muscle, it's almost having like a buffer around your body. But when you're thin and look at Paul George, for example. Paul George is relatively a very slim guy. You couldn't play like that in the 80s and the 90s, which you had that kind of frail body. Now, some people can get away with it, but you need to have more strength on your body. You need to have a little bit more. That's why Jordan beefing up a little bit more. So that's the other part about it. So when people say this, they cannot prove that they're stronger. They literally cannot prove that they're faster. And athletic, they cannot prove that as well. Because if you say they're more athletic, again, I'm going to ask you, how exactly are you proving this? Can we test verticals? That's one way to prove it. Are players today jumping higher than players in the past? There's no way to prove this because you have absolutely no evidence. The fact is, players today have been as athletic as they've always been. Kenny Smith brought up the example. He said Larry Nance was more athletic than his son, Larry Nance Jr. Help it make sense. You had freak athletes in every era. Dominique Wilkins, Dr. J, Michael Jordan, Spud Webb, who's an athletic freak, really. Then you go all the way to the Nate Robinsons, the Vince Carters, the Kobes, the LeBrons, till the modern. Then you have the Blake Griffins, you have the Gerald Greens, you have the Jason Richardsons, you have all of those guys. And you come into the modern era, the John Morants, the Anthony Edwards, and so many others. I forgot even Derrick Rose or Russell. Like, what are we talking about? So people say this, but they cannot prove it. And I'm going to be one of those people that's always going to push back. If you say it, we need to go through step by step why you're saying this. If you cannot produce this information, then you don't get to say that and then go on to be unchallenged whenever you put out that view. So these are my thoughts. What I want to know from you guys: what do you think about what Shaq had to say? What do you think about our analysis? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section, and we'll catch you guys on the next show. Peace.